Go straight to the UN Security Council session that is being held and was being attended by the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry to participate in the session and address the latest war in Gaza.
34 trucks entered Gaza with life-saving supplies, and another 20 crossed Rafah into Gaza yesterday. 20 more of those are due to cross today. We welcome this important development, and we pledge to do our part to ensure these deliveries increase and continue. But these deliveries are a drop in the bucket compared to the vast scale of needs. They amount to no more than 4% of the daily average volume of commodities entering Gaza prior to these hostilities. Needs are now, of course, significantly greater. And most crucially, the deliveries made over the past few days do not include fuel. That is essential for powering the services that are needed for people to survive. Without fuel, our humanitarian operation will stop. No fuel means no hospitals functioning, no desalination of water, and no baking. Many people are drinking saline groundwater, increasing the risks of diarrhea, cholera, and other health issues. We urge Israel to bring water and electricity supplies back to pre-conflict levels and to work with us to find a secure way of bringing fuel into Gaza. While we negotiate with the government of Israel as to how best to bring fuel into Gaza, we have 400,000 liters of trucks ready to go. This would provide fuel for approximately 2.5 more days. If the civilians across Gaza are to get access to adequate food, water, medical care, and other essential supplies, we must be able to scale up deliveries of all goods, and we must be able to replenish fuel supplies. It will be important also that the Israeli crossings for the movement of people and goods are opened. I want to express my utmost admiration for the bravery and extraordinary commitment of those delivering life-saving and humanitarian services in Gaza. This includes the incredible staff at UNRWA, many of whom are displaced themselves and who continue to support the most vulnerable despite it all. We must also pay tribute to the 35 UNRWA colleagues who have tragically been killed. I urge the Council to redouble funding to UNRWA and other humanitarian agencies on the ground without delay so they can continue these indispensable efforts. Mr. President, today of all days, when we celebrate the United Nations, we must all continue to demand respect for international humanitarian law. The parties on all sides must take constant care to spare civilians, including medical and humanitarian personnel, civilian objects, including homes, hospitals, and humanitarian assets. Civilians must have the essentials to survive, and to this end, the passage of rapid and unimpeded and increased humanitarian relief must be facilitated and water and electricity connections resumed. I urge all countries with influence to exert it and ensure respect for the rules of war. Mr. President, agreement on the resumption of aid deliveries and the release of a small number of hostages over the past few days shows that through diplomacy and negotiations, humanity can prevail, and we can find humanitarian solutions, even in the depths of this conflict. In this spirit, I reiterate the Secretary General's call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire to ease this epic human suffering. If we are to prevent any further descent into this humanitarian catastrophe, dialogue must continue to ensure essential supplies can get into Gaza at the scale needed, to spare civilians and the infrastructure they depend on, to release hostages, and to avoid any further escalation and spillover. The world is looking to the member states around this council to play its part in leading the way. Thank you.
I thank Mrs. Lynn Hastings for her briefing. And I now give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Riyad Al-Maliki, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates of the Observer State of Palestine.
Mr. President, we are here today to stop the killing, to stop the massacres being committed against the Palestinian people. The ongoing massacres being deliberately and systematically and savagely perpetrated by Israel, the occupying power, against the Palestinian civilian population under its illegal occupation must be stopped. The Security Council has a duty to stop them. The international community is obliged under international law to stop them. It is our collective human duty to stop them. Now, continued failure at this Council is inexcusable. Mr. President, we express appreciation to Brazil for convening this session of the Security Council and elevating its participation in light of the gravity of the situation we are facing. We thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his sobering briefing and for his tireless efforts, and that of the UN agencies and humanitarian staff on the ground, particularly UNRWA, working round the clock under the most inhumane conditions to aid our people and uphold a minimum sense of humanity. We mourn with them the senseless killing of UNRWA staff and other humanitarian workers, including doctors, nurses, and paramedics, who were directly targeted by this ongoing barbarous aggression. They are heroic champions of humanity at a time of abject depravity. Mr. President, over 2 million Palestinians are on a survival mission every day, every night. By the time representatives are done delivering their speeches today, 150 Palestinians will have been killed, including 60 children. In the last 2 weeks, over 5,700 Palestinians have been killed, including over 2,300 children and 1,300 women. Compared to the population of Gaza, that is the equivalent of 145,000 British citizens or 700,000 US citizens. Almost all those killed by Israel are civilians. Over 1 million displaced, 170,000 housing units destroyed. Excellencies, only international law and peace are worthy of your country's unconditional support. More injustice and more killing will not make Israel safer. No amount of weapons, no alliance will bring to it security. Only peace will. Peace with Palestine and its people. The fate of the Palestinian people cannot continue to be dispossession, displacement, denial of rights, and death. Our freedom is the condition of shared peace and security. You have all spoken of the Palestinian people's legitimate grievances, addressing them, of their legitimate aspirations, help achieving them, of their right to self-determination, support its realization. For those actively engaged to avoid an even greater humanitarian catastrophe and regional spillover, it must be clear that this can only be achieved by putting an immediate end to the Israeli war launched against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Stop the bloodshed. There is no amount of humanitarian aid that can address the situation if more death, destruction, and devastation are imposed on our people in Gaza. There is no way to contain underlying tensions in our region if that reality does not change. There are so many fronts open for war and none for peace. Some of my colleagues spoke to me about the pain and anger of bereaved families. Every family in Gaza is a bereaved family. No one is spared. No one is safe. Where is the solidarity with them? Where is the empathy towards them? Where is the outrage for their killing? If these expressions are genuine, they cannot be accompanied by excuses for the killer and reasons for him to continue the killing. We should be on the same side, all of us who believe in justice and in peace, in the rule of international law, in the value and sanctity of human life. We should stand shoulder to shoulder in these moments. But that is only possible if everyone recognizes the value of Palestinian life, the need to uphold Palestinian rights. This is only possible if you offer unconditional support to the rule of international law and the objective of peace, not to those breaching the former and destroying the latter. Sooner or later, you will have to admit that the interests of your countries and those of this Israeli government are not aligned, but rather opposed. The sooner you recognize it, the more lives can be saved, the more chance we have to walk back from the abyss. It may be hard to imagine in these circumstances a different reality. The effort and energy it would take, the difficult choices it implies, the political cost it carries, the changes to policies it entails. But as we said repeatedly, it is worth it because of the alternative, the one we are living in right now, the one the Palestinian people have been experiencing for decades. There is a reality where no Palestinians and no Israelis are killed, where all enjoy equal measures of freedom, peace, and security. That reality is the one that deserves all your efforts and all your resources. Invest in peace, not war. Support justice, not vengeance. Stand for freedom, not justify continued subjugation and occupation. Billions of people from all faiths and all origins care about the fate of the Palestinian people. They measure against it all the statements, positions of your countries. They consider it the ultimate test for the values one proclaims and the norms we all enacted. In Gaza, under the rebels lies over 1,000 Palestinians and all the values and all the norms. Under the bombs, 2 million Palestinians and all the values and all the norms. Abandoning the Palestinian people is betraying those values and norms. You either rescue the international law-based order or leave it to die there. We thank all those who have taken an equivocal position and offered support, starting with the countries of our region, who understand more than any other the implications of the continued inhumane and barbaric attacks against our people, but also countries across the globe, peoples in your streets, the moral voices of this world. Please listen to them. You have families, and some of you evoked them when Israelis were killed. How you could not but think of your loved ones and what pain and suffering you would feel if they had endured a similar fate. I am therefore convinced you cannot be numb to a reality where all the people you love, your parents, grandparents, siblings, children, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and in-laws are all in danger of imminent death, or worse, have all been killed in one strike, in one instant. That is happening repeatedly. Can you feel their pain? Can you imagine the day after for them, for that child who is the only survival for his entire family? Can you then imagine how we feel when anyone claims this is for the better? Can you imagine your loved ones besieged and bombed, deprived of the essential goods for their survival, their fate dependent on decision to allow or prevent fuel, water, and food from entering, with any delay meaning a death sentence for many? Families should be reunited in life, not in death. If you say you are for international law, international humanitarian law, and for protection of civilians, then nothing can justify what Israel is doing. This is targeting of civilians, or at best inhumane, unlawful, indiscriminate attacks. This is collective punishment. Once you remove the principles of humanity and distinction from the laws of war, nothing remains. These are crimes and should be treated as such. What Israel is doing is consistent with its belief that we are subhumans, or human animals, as they put it. But surely you don't share that belief. You do not believe our lives are less worthy, less sacred, more expendable. So imagine what you would do if bombs were falling on Israel, killing civilians by the thousands, and then ask, why is this any different? Israel has killed thousands of Palestinians over the years, and yet no one suggested that entitled us to start killing Israeli civilians, neither under a right to defend ourselves, to protect our own, or to resist. Your message was always clear. Nothing can justify killing Israeli civilians. Well, nothing justifies killing Palestinian civilians. Nothing. I will turn right now to speak in Arabic, please. السيد الرئيس، أليست مسؤولية مجلس الأمن حفظ الأمن والسلم الدوليين وصون مقاصد وأهداف الميثاق التي تعهدت لشعوبنا بإنقاذ الأجيال المقبلة من ويلات الحروب واتخاذ التدابير المشتركة الفعالة لمنع الأسباب التي تهدد السلم وإزالتها وفقاً لمبادئ العدل والقانون الدولي، أم يتعذر على مجلسكم الاطلاع بمسؤولياته وتنفيذ ولايته وقراراته دون انتقائية أو ازدواجية في المعايير عندما يتعلق الأمر بفلسطين؟ أليس دوره التصدي للعدوان الذي يستهدف الرضع والأطفال والنساء ووقفه فوراً، وتوفير الحماية للمدنيين الفلسطينيين من الجرائم المستمرة للاحتلال، وعلاج جذر المشكلة وأسباب عدم الاستقرار وغياب الأمن والسلم، والتي تتمثل بالرغبة الجامحة لسلطات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي باستعمار أرض فلسطين وتشريد شعبها. فالأمن والسلم يمران من بوابة تمكين الشعب الفلسطيني من حقوقه المشروعة وغير القابلة للتصرف، وليس بالقفز عنها وتجاهل معاناته وإنسانيته. سيد الرئيس، لقد جاء في الإعلان العالمي لحقوق الإنسان، وأنا هنا أقتبس: إن تجاهل حقوق الإنسان يفضي إلى أعمال همجية تؤذي الضمير الإنساني. انتهى الاقتباس. وهنا أتوجه بالسؤال للمجتمع الدولي ممثلا بمجلسكم: ألا يؤذي ضميركم الإنساني وجرائم الاحتلال الإسرائيلي على مدار عقود من احتلاله الاستعماري، أو ما يتعرض له الشعب الفلسطيني اليوم من إرهاب وقتل ودمار وتجويع؟ ألا يؤرقكم قتل الطفولة في فلسطين بالقصف الهمجي الذي يقتل الأبرياء ويستهدف المنازل والمستشفيات والمدارس والمساجد والكنائس والصحفيين والعاملين في القطاع الصحي وموظفي الأمم المتحدة؟ ألا يؤذي ضميركم الإنساني تجريد شعبنا من إنسانيته والتصريحات الممجوجة للمسؤولين الإسرائيليين التي تدعو للتطهير العرقي والإبادة الجماعية، وتصف الشعب الفلسطيني تارة بأطفال الظلام وتارة بالحيوانات البشرية لإباحة قتلهم. ألا يؤذي الضمير الإنساني الحصار المستمر على شعبنا في غزة وعلى مدار 16 عاما وتجويع الشعب ومنع دخول المياه والغذاء والدواء والوقود وغيرها من المواد الأساسية؟ ألا يؤذي ضمير الإنساني استهداف المدنيين في الضفة الغربية بما فيها القدس واستهداف الأماكن المقدسة المسيحية والإسلامية؟ وكم من الضحايا الفلسطينيين والأطفال يجب أن يسقطوا حتى يستدعي الأمر من مجلسكم الموقر الدعوة لوقف هذا الجنون منفلت العقال. لا تخطئ التقدير إن الحرب المدمرة ضد المدنيين من الشعب الفلسطيني في قطاع غزة هي امتداد للعدوان الذي يشنه هذا الاحتلال على شعبنا لاستدامة استعماره واحتلاله لأرضنا. فالسلام والأمن لا يمكن أن يتحققا بإراقة دماء الأطفال ولا بمحو غزة أو تحويلها إلى جهنم أو تقليص مساحتها، كما أعلن مرارا وتكرارا من يقومون بهذا الدمار والقتل، ولا بتسليح الآلاف من المستعمرين الإرهابيين لمواصلة إرهابهم واعتدائهم على أبناء شعبنا في القدس والضفة الغربية. سيد الرئيس، أطفال فلسطين في غزة يكتبون أسماءهم على أيديهم كي لا يغدوا جثثا مجهولة الهوية ويدفنوا في مقابر جماعية، فقد أبادت إسرائيل عشرات العائلات من سجل السكان في عمل انتقامي ضد الأطفال والنساء والمدنيين، وهذا ما اتفق العالم على منع حدوثه، وسعت مقاصد الميثاق إلى حظره وقمعه، وجاء القانون الدولي لمنعه. نعم سيد الرئيس، إسرائيل تنتقم من النساء والأطفال، تنتقم من الشعب الفلسطيني ككل، تنتقم من الضحية التي ما زالت ترفض هذا الاحتلال ومشروعه الاستعماري، الضحية التي ما زالت تطالب بحقوقها في الحرية والاستقلال والعودة، الشعب الصامد في وجه الجرائم والعدوان المستمر والهمجي المدعم بخطاب الكراهية والانتقام، والذي تقوده حكومة الاحتلال التي تريد استكمال جريمة النكبة. وكما قال شاعرنا الكبير محمود درويش: نحن الضحية التي جربت كل أنواع القتل حتى أحدث الأسلحة، لكننا الأعجوبة التي لا تموت ولا تستطيع أن تموت. انتهى الاقتباس. لقد وقف العالم شاهدا على ما تقوم به إسرائيل من كل أنواع القتل والدمار والاعتقال والتهجير ضد الشعب الفلسطيني، وتعايش مع جرائمها وإفلاتها من العقاب بدلا من البحث عن حل جذري للاحتلال ووجوده على أرض دولة فلسطين. فإنهاء الاحتلال وإحقاق حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني هو الطريق الأوحد للحفاظ على الاستقرار والأمن والسلم الإقليميين والدوليين. إن التصعيد الخطير في المنطقة سببه الرئيس غياب الحقوق وتجاهلها، وعليه فإن الحد الأدنى الملح المتوقع من مجلس الأمن اليوم هو الدعوة للوقف الفوري للعدوان الإسرائيلي، وقف لإطلاق النار على شعبنا في قطاع غزة، والعمل العاجل على تأمين دخول المساعدات والمعونات الإنسانية في كل أنحاء قطاع غزة، ومنع التهجير القسري، وتوفير الحماية الدولية العاجلة للشعب الفلسطيني، وتحقيق العدالة من خلال المساءلة والمحاسبة، بالإضافة إلى اتخاذ ما يلزم من خطوات عملية لمعالجة جذر المشكلة وإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي لأرض دولة فلسطين وعاصمتها القدس، استنادا لقرارات مجلسكم هذا ومرجعيات عملية السلام والقانون الدولي، وإحقاق الحقوق غير القابلة للتصرف، وعلى رأسها الحق في تقرير المصير والاستقلال الوطني، والعودة للاجئين الفلسطينيين إلى ديارهم التي شردوا منها تنفيذا للقرار 194. الحرب والسلم يبدأ من فلسطين. ألا يكفي منطقتنا حروبا؟ غزة اليوم هي عاصمة العالم، ترحل كل الأنظار نحوها، لا تسقط في اختبارها، فيها شعب أبي جبار تحمل ما لا يتحمله بشر، كفى عذاب وقتل وظلم، لتحيا غزة وتحيا فلسطين، وتحيا الحرية لكي يحيا السلام. وشكرا.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Al-Maliki for his statement, and I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Eli Cohen, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Israel.
Mr. President, Minister of Foreign Affairs, members of the Security Council, as we meet here today, young babies